All right, you're listening to Up West Sports. This episode's brought to you by this beer in my mouth. It's an IPA. It's just delicious. We'll get to it later. Anyways, we got something else pretty cool today. We got Colton, the big man on campus. We got Colton in the house talking to us about his journey over the past month at spring training down here in Arizona. Colton, thank you so much for jumping on. Thank you for being here, and really excited to dive into your journey down here, man.
Yeah, it's been a long month. I'm excited to go sleep in my own bed. Let me tell you, the hotel beds have not been my favorite over the past month, but yeah, man, it's been one hell of an experience, and I'm more than happy to share everything that I can because it's been really cool.
Well, first things first. I know we just talked about it off air, but I want to bring it straight to the top. Colton was the first one that really saw the, of course, yep, my AI tracking. There we go. We're back in it, boys. Colton was the first one to see the home run trot that was, yep, ballerific. We're bringing that one back. So honestly, did you see? Okay, so you saw that. Was there anything else that you saw that was kind of more playful, more banter with the team, more camaraderie that you saw that you're like, okay, we might see this one in games?
Ooh, man. In terms of, I mean, a lot of the times they were bringing back like the weird like skater thing they did last year. If you guys remember that, I saw them kind of doing that at the beginning of spring. In terms of things we might see in game, man. Other than that, I feel like that's really all I caught. We didn't see that. They did, as far as I know, they didn't practice the after the win dance, like none of that stuff. So we'll see what goes on there. Obviously, it's all the same guys for the most part, so they all know what they're doing. Except for like I can see Rowdy getting in there, like stumbling around, like a big child in there. But yeah, I think that I was just watching batting practice. I was watching a round of Julio, Polo, and Randy, and Julio came out and like shook Randy's hand, and then they like hit the three and then did the thing. And I was like, yeah, that's going to be a thing in game. And lo and behold, Victor's done it now. All three of them have done it now, and it's been, yeah, I felt pretty good. I just felt so confident when I saw that. I'm like, they're going to do that during the season, absolutely, because it just felt right.
That's happening. And was it one of one? Did they try a couple others, or was like, oh, we like this, we're doing it, it's in?
From what I saw, that was it. And they might have tried some stuff, like in the weight room or something like that. But while we were out of batting practice, at least from when I was there, that's all I saw. So maybe they talked about it beforehand. Maybe they, had a group chat saying, hey, let's try this move. But yeah, that's the only one I saw. So
yeah, group chats are underrated. I think there's definitely a group chat going around of how do we get this one accomplished, boys? So yeah, dude, that was pretty awesome. And I know most of us here have been watching most of your guys' stuff, all the content you've been coming down with, and all that. Did you get to meet anybody, any big leaguers, any minor leaguers?
So it's interesting because obviously guys like Lyle and TJ were down here. Connor was obviously down here doing some stuff, and they're credentialed, right? And they are kind of, I think you and I talked about this a little bit when we were at the A's game. They're professional. Me, I wear Hawaiian shirts every day. Joe and I are so far from professional, it's unbelievable because we're just two dudes hanging out. And so I kind of didn't try to. What we call our channel, or how we've deemed our channel, the motto, if you will, is for a fan by a fan. So like really trying to give you the fan experience. So thankfully I didn't like get any special treatment, to like go behind the scenes or what have you. And so for the most part, the only time that I talked to any of the players, which I mean, I did talk to some of them, but it was when they were signing autographs, and I would just, kind of chat with them for a second. But there was one person that I was like, it was yesterday, and I'm like, I have to get a picture with him because Logan Gilbert, every single day that he is not, obviously when he's on the mound, it's different, but every day when he's not on the mound and he's coming out of practice, he will sign for every single person along the fence. And when I was out there yesterday, he was out there for over an hour signing for everybody. And it got down to the end, and I'm like, dude, like, he's just a genuine guy. I just got to get a picture with him. I had nothing for him to sign. I have his autograph already. I'm like, I just want to take a picture with him and just be like, dude, you're a genuine person. And that's really kind of been the motto of spring, is just how good of people these guys are. And none so more than like Logan, I think.
I don't think I've ever seen a picture with Logan Gilbert and Rowdy Tellez. That's awesome. I'm so glad he was able to take a picture with you. That was actually when somebody called that out on that picture from Instagram. I was like, okay, all right, that was a good one. That was a good one.
It's kind of spot on. In the video that we have coming out tomorrow, I put on the spring training cap and I'm like, hey, I'm Rowdy. Sorry, like I don't know what to tell you because we were doing like unsung heroes, and I'm like, it's gonna be Rowdy. And yeah, it's a thing now apparently. Just like how Joe looks like Luke Rayleigh according to Twitter. So
yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that's a good one. Well, Ty, I want to kick it over to you. Any questions from spring training?
Yeah, really quick, Colton. The one thing I didn't watch any games or anything like that. I just caught them on the radio when I could, or on the box scores on like ESPN and MLB.com. But I was just curious because Randy and Rowdy go back to their time playing together at Team Mexico. I was curious if you saw any interactions between the two, and I was maybe hoping that would help spark some stuff between the two. Maybe help them stay more positive, keep their stuff going pretty good.
Yeah, I honestly haven't really seen them too much together because usually the outfield and the infield groups are kind of separated for the most part at practices. I don't think that I saw them hitting any groups together or anything like that. Obviously, the Rowdy edition was relatively later on in the spring, and so I didn't really see anything early on. I honestly didn't even think about that connection until you just said that, and I'm like, yeah, they were both on Team Mexico, huh? And it's like, so maybe in season we might see something there, especially if like Rowdy's DH one day and then Randy's DH another. Maybe they got some sort of friendly competition going on there or something. But I think that the vibes that Rowdy Tellez brings to this team, it's incredible. Like some of just the behind the scenes things that man has said. He asked Perry Hill if he was wearing his Depends the other day. He said that. I'm like, what the hell? Like you're the new guy on campus, buddy. He was saying he was going to go take ground balls at shortstop, and yeah, he's just a great dude. And then Randy, I mean, last year you guys kind of mentioned it. We didn't really know kind of if he was going to be able to unattach himself. Detach is a word. Detach himself from Tampa Bay. And I think he really did this year because that dude has been signing. I think he's probably signed just as many autographs as Logan has this spring. He's having a lot of fun. He's hanging out with the fans in between innings. He's getting extra balls thrown out to him so he can throw them into the stands. Like I completely understand why he was the guy in Tampa Bay and why the fans loved him so much. Last year, I mean, it did look like he just kind of didn't want to be here at the beginning. And understandably so, when you've been in an organization like the Rays for as long as you had, and you had that great run in 2020 in the postseason, like I can understand why it was hard for him to kind of disassociate with that. But I think with a half season under his belt going into his first full season with the Mariners, he's the guy that I really look out for to kind of be a dark horse catalyst for this team. And I think the Mariners fans are going to fall in love with him.
How many spring trainings have you had a chance to go to, Colton?
Let's see. So my first one was 2011. I went again in 2013, and then not again until 2020. So
did you happen to go while Gino was here? Any of those?
Yeah. The only one that I've missed in the 2020s was 2022.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I'm just curious if because you know how last year no Gino, right? So kind of missing those vibes. I was curious if maybe Rowdy, Rosarena kind of bringing some of those vibes back. Maybe.
I think
got that feeling down there in spring.
Yeah, the vibes were strong. They were very strong. Like good. I've said to a lot of people that I feel a lot better about where this team is now than I did a month ago before I got down here. Like just based on I think that's one thing that could be said about bringing back kind of the same guys. They should have made more moves, absolutely. But bringing back Polo, he knows everyone. You know what I mean? Keeping Mitch Garver, he knows everybody. And then adding some good vibes guys like Rowdy Tellez, I think is a big deal. Now, no one will ever match Gino. I love Gino. I only got to see him for a very short time because he was at the WBC in 2023 when I was down here. And then 2022, I didn't come down. So, but yeah, I think that the vibes between Julio, Victor, Randy, and Rowdy, and then JP's just kind of, laid back coolness. And then, of course, you have the Bryce Millers of the world. Like, I think the vibes in this team are going to be pretty immaculate. And like I said, that's one thing that I've noticed about this team this spring is they're just a bunch of good dudes who like to have fun, and they make it so easy to root for them. Even if the team might suck, truthfully. The team might be horrible, but they make it so easy to root for them because they're just a lot of good dudes.
Yeah, 76 or 96 wins, anywhere in between.
That's about right, yeah.
Kyle, wanted to kick it over to you, man.
So kind of heard some different things from like Jeff Passan and kind of talked about like the leadership. He kind of alluded to like this is kind of where Julio needs to, this is supposed to be his team just based on his contract, and he really should make that leap as a leader. Now, again, he's still, I think he's 24 right now. So, I mean, he's coming off kind of a so-so year, but then you've got people like a Randy, you've got a Cal who's been very vocal, in the last few years, especially being so like, hey, let's make this team better. Kind of with some of those different kind of characters, who do you really see as that leader? And with like Mitch Hanover being gone, like who really takes on that presence as like that leader? But beyond that, you talked about this kind of vibe. It's kind of a laid back vibe. Who is going to be that guy that's going to, when things maybe aren't going well to start the year, is going to put a foot down, start yelling and say, we need to get our heads out of our, what, and get playing. So kind of a two-parter there, but
I think the answer to both questions is Cal Raleigh.
Yes.
I think that, like you mentioned already, he's been a lot more vocal about making this team better. He's talked about, how the team didn't get it done last year. And Cal this year in spring, he's had a good time, but he seems dialed in this year. He seems like he has one goal, like one direction, and he's not really taking any outside distractions. And I think that if the team does get off to a slow start, they're going to hear about it from Cal. And like you said, Julio hopefully kind of takes on that role this year. He's still, like you said, 24, and it should be his team. He's going to be the one that's here the longest of everybody that's here right now. And I just don't know if he's the guy. He can be intense, but I don't think he's the guy that's going to be able to light a fire under someone. Whereas Cal Raleigh, like, you don't want that guy mad at you because he's the heart and soul of this team. I mean, we saw what he did last year. We see how he commands the pitching staff, and we see the presence he is in the batter's box. Like, that's the guy that when you look at this team, yeah, it's Julio's team, but you can almost argue Cal's the face of it. I think that Cal Raleigh, in the position that he plays, in the role that he plays for this team, is almost more important than Julio just because of the leadership that he brings. Now, like you said, losing Mitch Haniger after already losing Robbie Ray a couple years ago, who was said to be a vocal leader, losing Gino, there's been a lot of guys that have, left. Losing, of course, Justin Turner is another one who was a kind of a veteran leader there at the end. Donovan Solano, I feel like could be that guy. He seems, from the very little tiny bit that I talked to him this spring, he seems to be like, hey, it's not just about me. It's about, the whole team has to do well. He said, I can hit 500, but if the rest of the team's not playing well, it doesn't matter. And so I think that's a good ideation to have. Whether or not it's going to translate into the regular season, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think the short answer there is just, it's got to be Cal Raleigh on both fronts.
Yeah, I agree too. I think Cal Raleigh is the melting pot. He's the center stone. He's the glue. He's the glue. He's the guy that he's the guy that it doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, brings everybody and centers them when needs be, but puts the foot down and he has to be the bad guy when he has to be the bad guy. 100%. Now we talked about Mariners that you might have seen. There was maybe one somebody in the Mariners organization that you might have had a run in with, and he might have made a comment about your hair, maybe. Yeah, who was that guy?
Yeah, some guy named Aaron Goldsmith, man.
That guy.
So the story goes a little bit like this. I was meeting up with a couple of people who watch the channel, a couple of friends of ours, Dustin and Holly, and I met up with them in the stadium at where was I? Goodyear, and we're chatting and they start talking about Aaron Goldsmith. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've talked to Goldie before, like super nice guy, he's just how he is on the radio and whatnot. That's how he is in real life. And lo and behold, not even 2 minutes later, who comes walking by heading to the press box but Aaron friggin' Goldsmith himself. And I just start laughing. And then Dustin's like, I'm going to say hi to him. And I'm like, cool, man. And so Dustin says hi to him, and Aaron comes right over, shakes all of our hands. And he's like, hi, I'm Aaron, to Dustin. Hi, I'm Aaron, to Holly. Hi, you have a great head of hair, to me. I'm like, okay, thanks, Aaron. But I was like, man, of all the people to compliment this mop. You know, it's Aaron Goldsmith, who arguably has the best hair like in the business. And yeah, he was telling me that he's starting to, as he's getting older, he's getting a few grays. And he was getting kind of worried about like what that's going to look like. And he goes, but your hair gives me confidence that I'm just not going to dye it. And I'll remember 5 years from now when I am gray. I'm like, thanks, Aaron. You're like 20 years older than me. But okay. He's like, I'll remember 5 years from now when I'm as gray as you, that random guy in Goodyear with the good head of hair. And I'm like, if I am just known as the random guy in Goodyear for the rest of my life to Aaron Goldsmith, I am okay with that. And like
Legend.
That was legendary.
Legend.
It was so cool. I was like, I'm that random guy in Goodyear, but I'll know what it was. But I'm just that random.
And
guy
if you're ever having any hair trouble, I mean, I'm pretty sure Joe Buck could give you maybe a tip or two. I'm here. He's pretty big into hair restoration. So
restoration of all sorts. Yeah, I did want to ask. So you got to go to 24 games. I'm pretty sure you got to see most of the parks, if not all of them. I live in Arizona. I haven't seen all the parks. Which one was your favorite, and why?
So during my time down here, I actually didn't get to go to all of them. However, I have been to all of them. My favorite park, I mean, naturally is Peoria. It's just like, I think the parking's the best. I think that it's the cop-out answer, of course, but I just am so comfortable there because I've been there a million times. I think that an underrated park, honestly, is Hohokam. Like the parking sucks at Hohokam. But the stadium, not too bad. I think it's interesting. They have that hill out in right field, like along the berm, which is kind of fun. The worst ballpark by far, and it's not even close, is Tempe Diablo.
Yeah,
that stadium is horrendous, and I'm glad that it's of all teams to play there, it's the freaking Angels, because it just is so fitting. It's so fitting for that dumpster fire of a franchise to play in the worst stadium down there, down here in Cactus League spring training. The concourse is this big. I'm bigger than the concourse, so I'm like having to walk sideways, to get through, and it's hot. There's no shade, dude. Oh, don't get me started. But yeah. So my favorite's Peoria, not cop-out answer. I mean, Salt River is kind of a cop-out answer too, so I don't want to say Salt River. Yeah. But Camelback Ranch is cool. It's the Dodgers and White Sox. When you park out in the center field, around the center field gates, you actually walk through the backfields of the Dodgers to get to the gate, and they have like a whole river running through there. It's cool. They have the best backfields by far in the Cactus League, so I think that's a good one as well.
Yeah. Ty, I wanted to kick it over to you for another question here. You're muted.
Been there.
All right. Yeah. So you know how some podcasters will like tie themselves to a certain player. Hey, this is my guy, or right. They'll be right. I've seen you guys do that. I've seen Locked On guys do that. Some of the podcasters, other teams do that. Who's your guy this year? Who are you? I'm not going to say like tying your name to, but like tell me about someone you're optimistic about who's going to have a better year than they had last year.
Okay. I was going to say it's Rowdy. I mean, look at me. But okay,
preface it can't be someone else that isn't Rowdy, because that's kind of like a giveaway.
Yeah, that's a cop out, man. Come on.
Let's see. This year, Ryan Bliss. Honestly, like I went again for the video that Joe and I have coming out tomorrow. Like what we were doing, like the accolade or the awards for this team, who's going to win Cy Young, etc. And for Gold Glove, I said it's going to be Ryan Bliss. I think that his defense is incredibly underrated, and the work that he's put in this spring has honestly impressed me a lot. He looks like he is giving his 110% out there every single day when he's taking ground balls a second, where some of the other guys like JP, and understandably so, he's been around forever. You know what I mean? He's kind of nonchalant. He's just like grabbing it, kind of chucking it. But Ryan Bliss was going hard every single time he was out there. And I think that says a lot about kind of where he views himself in this lineup this year as a part of this organization this year. And that I think he should be given the starting job at second base. I think it's pretty clear that he had a much better spring than Demo. And I think Demo's better suited to be kind of a rover. And so because of that, I think that if we're going to see what we have in Ryan Bliss in 2025, if I had to pick one guy to like kind of stake my flag in, it is Ryan Bliss. So
if Demo's healthy today, do you think he deserves, though, to be your opening day second baseman? The fact that he's been here longer, he won you a Gold Glove. you kind of need to. I honestly, I would say you kind of need to know what you have in him, because we know he's a great utility man. He's a Gold Glove utility player. But looking at the outlook of this team and moving forward, we've talked about on other episodes where you finally get you get a guy that's 26 in AA. You kind of need to know what you have, or you need to cut him loose. So would you say that maybe Demo starts if he's healthy today? Because you kind of have to figure out, can he be an everyday player, or is he going to be your super utility? And then you look at a Ryan Bliss, or maybe Cole, a Cole Young and others like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because with Dylan Moore, I agree that you don't know if he could be like a everyday starter. I mean, he did it for a little while last year when JP was hurt, and he honestly looked great when he was doing it. The hard part with Demo is he has had, again, like you said, not a full-time gig, but he's had a lot of at-bats in the majors, and he has a career like 29.7 strikeout rate. It's abysmal. It's really bad. He strikes out a ton. And we also saw that he could not hit at all at T-Mobile Park last year for whatever reason. I think that for the same reasons that you need to know what you have with Dylan Moore, I almost think it's more important to know what you have with Ryan Bliss, because Demo's in the last year of his contract. Like if he's 30, he's in the last year of his contract. If he goes out there and, puts up a 200 season, or hitting 200 with like an 85 OPS plus, like, what was he worth to you? You know what I mean? Now he's gone. It doesn't matter. Whereas Ryan Bliss, if he goes out there and puts up the same numbers, okay, maybe he's not the guy and you can move on from him. But with Demo, you're going to have to move on from him either way unless you extend him again. And so, I don't know, man. It's a tough question, because I like Dylan Moore. I just think that we have seen time and time again. How do I put this? We saw it with Sam Haggerty, for example. He started to get playing time every single day, and he got exposed. We saw it with Jose Caballero. He got exposed. I worry that with Dylan Moore, especially with his high strikeout rate, the more he plays, if he starts getting exposed, which again, there's the book's out on him. Everyone knows about that Dylan Moore's going to strike out.
He's got a sample size. Like
exactly,
you said, you know what you have. What I get nervous with Bliss is, like you look at this team, and again, we've talked about it before with, you look at some of these teams out there that hide a player, right? He's a defensive wizard, but you hide him in the 8-hole, and if he, hits his weight, great. But if he doesn't, you're kind of hiding him because you're like, I will sacrifice hits for a glove. We got a couple of those right now, unfortunately. So it's kind of that, is Solano a better hitter, but you're going to sacrifice the fielding? Like, and I guess that's kind of the discussion of where are we at, where we can say, yep, Bliss is young. We're going to see what he does, but his glove is so superior. We're okay, get a guy batting 202, 205. Or are we saying, well, there could be multiple people that are going to be batting like that, and we need to really think about offense.
And I think that's the hard part, is you don't really have the room. You don't have room for error this year. Like these guys, if they're not hitting, you have to cut bait pretty quick. We just saw it with Mitch Haniger. Like, they cut him, rightfully so. They needed to. And with, Dylan Moore or even Ryan Bliss, if he's not hitting, the nice part with Ryan Bliss, if he's not hitting, send him down. Cool. You're done with it. If Dylan Moore's not hitting, what do? He's just your bench. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. Like, so I think that you just, and what this organization is going to do is they're just going to roll with the hot hand, is what I would assume Dan Wilson and all them are going to do. I still think Dylan Moore is going to get, 350 to 400 plate appearances. I just think that, once again, I think it's better suited taking over at maybe third base late in the game, so that Jorge Polanco's defense isn't out there anymore as a defensive replacement. Or, maybe you don't like the matchup with Randy out there in left field. You could put Dylan Moore out there. Freeing him up to move around the infield or move around the diamond is really important, in my opinion. Now, with that being said, I do want to preface that with saying the Mariners might be carrying Miles Mastroboni, and it sounds like they will. And he's a guy who could do literally all that as well. So they're they have a lot of positional versatility, which I think is important. And because of that, maybe that does give Dylan Moore second base a little bit more. Because you can't platoon him and Ryan Bliss at second base. That doesn't make sense. But I don't know. I think that they'll just kind of, whoever figures it out early enough, they're going to be the one that starts every day. And then the other one's going to ride the pine. And I think that's totally fine.
I want to paint a quick picture here, Colton, for you, and then try to draw a comparison. You look at the outfield with the vibes they got, right? It's pretty solid, man. It's a fun group. Even throwing Rayleigh out there, if he's got to start and Randy's got a DH. Rowdy at first or DHing, great vibes coming out of there. Polo's he's not a straight laced guy, but he's not like a outgoing rah guy either. But he's he'll throw it in there, And then you got JP, like you said, he's laid back, he's cool. I wonder who's better for this team at second, making a up the middle battery with JP. It might be Ryan Bliss just from a vibe standpoint. I'm not saying Dylan Moore isn't a vibes guy, but like he's very straight laced, very analytical, like Cal Raleigh, but like even more vanilla. And I wonder if you can really have how many of those you can have on your team before it starts to affect, the positivity.
I will say Dylan Moore behind the scenes is a little bit more of a live wire. I got a video of him the other day during batting practice. He just started walking towards Christopher Negron like he was going to high five him, and instead like jumped on him and bear hugged him just out of nowhere. It was so funny. So yeah, he does have that side to him. But yeah, I think when it comes to game time, he's intense, like you said, like Cal Raleigh. Yeah. Overall, I don't know, man. I mean, it's tough because Ryan Bliss is a good vibes guy. Like he's fun. He's also the nicest guy in the world. I swear. Like you're not going to find anybody nicer than Ryan Bliss. And well, honestly, I think either guy will be fine from a vibe standpoint. The fact of the matter is Jared Kelenick's not on this team anymore, so we don't have to worry about something like that. You know what I mean? Because that guy, man, just from watching him at spring and whatnot, that guy rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, including in the clubhouse. And I think that the Mariners don't have a guy like that anymore. And I think that's important for this team because it is very much built on vibes. The old chaos ball mantra feels like it might be back this year because these guys are just going to cause, like Victor Robles is going to steal second, and then you're not going to be standing on third. He's going to keep on moving. Like, I don't know, like guys like him, even Ryan Bliss, they're going to cause a lot of havoc. And I think the chaos ball might be back because of it.
So you got to be at 24 games, as we have established, at least 4 or 5 times. We're just going to keep peppering it in. You've seen at least half a dozen, if not 3, 4, 5 halves a dozens of minor leaguers that just continuously, make their way into the lineup. A lot of these guys are those, last day cut, send to AAA. Some of them we might have even mentioned already. Was there anybody that really impressed you throughout the last month that was like, man, I didn't know who this guy was, or at least I didn't know enough about him, and now I saw him, and I'm really excited about this guy's future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one who really stands out as someone who maybe I didn't know as a whole lot about is Ben Williamson. He's a guy that I think that he will be, if Polo either gets hurt or Polo is not performing, he's your third baseman, and you're probably going to get better production out of him just due to the glove alone. He could, I mean, if Polo's not hitting and he's not fielding, get him off the roster. Like, you have no reason to carry him at that point. He's just Colton Wong. Like, if you have Ben Williamson, defense, it's not going to go away all of a sudden. So you at least know, kind of like Dylan Moore, you probably have a 2-win defensive player right there, which is basically what Dylan Moore was last year. And so with what Ben Williamson did, and I don't know what his final spring numbers were. I don't honestly know if he got into a whole lot of games. But just from seeing him in the batting cage and whatnot, I think that he's a guy who's going to pepper the gaps at T-Mobile Park. He's not going to hit for a whole lot of power. He's not going to hit the ball out a whole lot, but you can't really do that at T-Mobile anyway. So he's going to pepper that that left center gap a whole lot and play really good defense for this team. Another guy that stood out that I'm not going to say Nick Dunn, although I want to. Sorry, Joe.
He's a third. He's a third.
That's right.
He makes his way into this podcast.
Always. Man, Tyler Locklear had a good spring as well. I mean, obviously we know Tyler Locklear and whatnot, but seeing him hitting in the cage and then taking BP on the field and whatnot, I was very impressed with just his raw power. Like, I knew he was strong. I knew he had a lot of power, but he was hitting the ball further than anybody. And I think that, again, at first base, you kind of don't, like, if Rowdy's bad by May, cut him. Like, get rid of him. You don't need him on this roster if Rowdy's not good anymore. If and maybe bring up Tyler Locklear if he's hitting well in AAA. I don't know. And the last guy I want to mention is Blake Hunt. He's a guy who, as a backup catcher, I think makes a lot of sense for this team. Again, if Mitch Garver's not performing, Blake Hunt, I mean, that guy's got some power, man. I don't know if you guys saw the home run he hit over the pavilion in Peoria, but that ball against, I think it was the Dodgers, that ball was crushed. And while he's maybe never going to be like a high average guy, I think Blake Hunt behind the plate, he's a good backup to have while you let Harry Ford develop in AAA this year. So if Garver or Cal gets hurt, I think you go with Blake Hunt unless you feel that Harry Ford is 100% ready, which he might be. He might be. I think he will be at some point this year, but I think I'd go with Blake Hunt there.
Did you happen to see if any of the reps that Ford took behind the plate at all?
Yeah. So one thing I think that's interesting about Harry Ford is a lot of people will say, you know, he's not great defensively behind the plate. And
I've heard it's just his receiving. That's about it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And from what I could tell, I mean, I was usually in the outfield, so it was kind of hard to tell. But again, and I keep going back to how good of the guys these people are. Like these, I ran into Harry Ford a million times. He signed autographs for my niece and nephew like 3 times. And like, so he's a great dude. But when it comes to him defensively, I don't think, especially when you have Cal Raleigh as your starting catcher, at least right now, you don't really need to worry about his receiving because you just need him to be able to come up there and catch baseballs, especially if the ABS is coming. If the ABS is coming, how you receive doesn't matter anymore. Like, you don't need to steal strikes anymore. If it's crossing the plane, it's a strike. And like, so I think that's something that with Harry Ford, yeah, it could be a problem, but when you have Dan Wilson as your manager, like you're gonna get it figured out. And so from what I could tell, he looked fine, but also I didn't have like a spotlight on him to really know for sure. I just hope he makes his major league debut this year at some point because I think he's a guy that really deserves it.
Yeah, I actually did want to. I have a question for what your thoughts are on the whole Dan Wilson era. Obviously, we saw the end of it last year, and I thought he did a pretty good job. I think everybody can agree they finished the year on a high note, even though it wasn't the goal. Vibes are alive, obviously, at spring training. Is he kind of influencing in that? Is he doing a pretty good job of managing good talent?
Yeah, it's interesting the way that spring training was run this year. It was different. It really did feel different. Whereas Scott Service would have a meeting every morning at 8:30 before spring training. The only time that Dan was having meetings is when a meeting needed to be had, whether, you know, or if he said, hey, we need to talk about this. But in terms of, he wasn't like that strict schedule, like you need to be doing this, this, and this. However, when the guys were out there on the field, it felt very dialed in. Like it felt very like, I remember hearing coaches say, all right, we have 5 minutes. Like it's very like by the minute you have this much time to do this and you're switching stations and going to field 1 or something like that to go hit. And maybe that's just something I didn't realize when Scott was there or didn't really pay attention to. Maybe it's just because I was down here for a month. I started to catch on to that sort of stuff. But it really did feel like the guys were more focused this year. And that could be just them. Just because all these guys were here last year, that could be just them realizing they missed the playoffs by 1 game for the 2nd year in a row. And they're like, we got to figure it out. Or it could be Dan trying to run things a little bit differently. I know Kevin Seitzer, he was very meticulous about how guys were taking reps in the cage. And like, okay, first round, and it's a lot of stuff you did back in like high school and stuff like that. First round, you're hitting up the middle or oppo, and then you're doing situational stuff and whatnot. I don't really remember last year, Brant Brown and Tim Laker, them doing that. So I think that it just feels a little bit more nailed down than it did in years past. And I think Dan has a big part in that because from what we've heard, the lineup and whatnot is going to be strictly up to Dan. Whereas in years past with Scott Service, it was maybe up to Scott, but also, you know, Jerry DePoto and the analytical side of things had a big say in, you know, hey, you're bringing in a lefty to face this righty no matter what. Dan, he's no more old school. I don't think he's going to run it that way. And they are leaving it up to Dan to figure it out. I think that's a good thing.
And I think that was part of the, you know, Ty and I have had probably, I don't know, a dozen conversations at least on they need the kind of the FU guy, you know, they didn't have that real like Max Scherzer type, the guy that's just gonna, hey, this is what we got to do. They had a great vibe. Like obviously the whole team gels and they have really great chemistry in the locker room. But when things go south, they don't have that one person to be like, hey, pick your head up. Let's do this. We're still moving north. And I'm wondering if Dan isn't that guy. I'm wondering if a good mix of Dan and Cal obviously are not that guy. Especially with him being a little bit more old school, him being a little bit more, hey, pick yourself up, let's go, we're doing this. Yesterday's yesterday and tomorrow's tomorrow. But yeah, Kyle, wanted to kick it over to you. Holy smokes, I went the right way this time. Here we go.
Questions. Do you think there is another move that comes in the next month?
I think there could be another move that comes the next 3 days because a lot of roster cuts especially in the bullpen are going to be happening over the next couple of days as either guys don't make teams or they have opt-outs they can trigger or what have you. The Mariners bullpen's in a weird spot because they sent down Casey Legumina. They released Drew Pomeranz, both guys that I thought had a really decent chance to make this team. You're going to roll with Edward Bizardo and Carlos Vargas, which is, I'm not opposed to the idea. One of the reasons why Legumina was sent down is because he had an option, whereas like Vargas does not. So yeah, I get that. Same with, I believe, Fujinami has an option. So granted, Fuji's kind of looked a little rough this spring anyway. I mean, the Mariners should have won today's game, but whatever. Not bitter about it at all. Yeah, so I think that over the next couple of days, I don't think it'll be a big move. You know what I mean? But I think that there will be a move to be made, a move to be had. I mean, we saw them trade for Michael Hobbs, who was a minor league Rule 5 guy from the Mets. Something maybe a little bit more substantial than that, maybe closer to like the Ryan Stanek move last year. Obviously, that was a signing, but nonetheless, I think that there is definitely something that could come of that over the next couple of days and then fill out the spot that either Vargas or Bizardo are filling right now.
I did want to point something out because right now we are pretty much full bore on Emerson Hancock being the number 5 until George Kirby makes his comeback, which at this point, we don't know exactly when that's going to be. I know Jerry likes to slow roast things, which has led to tremendous success with guys staying healthy. Knock on wood. But 2 DFAs, I believe. Ryan Yarbrough, former Mariner, has been DFA'd, and also Dane Dunning from the Rangers. Both have major league experience. So do you see any other? Because beyond Emerson Hancock, and I guess we can group in Jonathan Diaz in this. Is there very many? Did you see any other starters that could really kind of emerge this year?
I will say that Ryan Yarbrough did sign with the Yankees today.
He did. I missed it.
Because that's a guy
quick.
He's a former Mariner. He used to be in the Mariners system, if I remember correctly, like years ago now. But I was really hoping they would sign him because I like Ryan Yarbrough a lot. Dane Dunning could be interesting. I mean, obviously he was a part of which trade was that to the Rangers?
Yeah, was it Tigers?
It was the Tiger. Yeah, was it the Verlander trade? It might have been the Verlander.
Was it part of the Verlander? I want to say, I don't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, wait, that would have been the Astros. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Anyway, Dane Dunning could be an interesting one. I think that's someone the Mariners could take a flyer on, and somebody that in this Mariners pitching staff, or with this pitching lab, could be someone who becomes literally anything. He might just be Emerson Hancock, but he might also live up to that potential that you thought you'd have with him. The hard part with that is I don't know if now is the time to experiment with something like that. And that's what makes it so difficult. But at the same time, you have a really good pitching staff. So like you can maybe, but no, I can't say that because if you lose that one game and you miss by one game, I'm gonna cry. Right. In the organization, I know that they're moving Brandon Garcia to the pen, which does bum me out a little bit. I think he'll be great out of the pen, but I was really hoping to see him as a starter. He was the best starter in Arkansas last year. Logan Evans, his spring was interesting to me, where sometimes he looked lights out, and then sometimes he looked completely overmatched this spring. And I think that they're going to start those guys back down in Arkansas again because a lot of times they don't send their top pitching prospects to Tacoma, because Tacoma's a bandbox and it just hurts everyone. I think that if, let's say, Emerson Hancock, knock on wood, gets hurt before George is ready, I would assume they would go to Jonathan Diaz, depending on how many starts it's going to be. But I would really like to see it be Logan Evans. And honestly, I kind of wish Logan Evans was the guy that got the call instead of Hancock to start the year. Because, again, he's somebody that you just got to know what you have in him before, because he has nothing left to prove down there at AA. Same with someone like Michael Morales, for example. He had a little bit rougher of a year, but Michael Morales is another guy that I think could get the call at some point this year. I highly doubt the Mariners are only going to use 6 starting pitchers this year, or 7. They used 7 last year because I think Diaz started a game, but they only used 7 starting pitchers last year. I doubt they get that lucky again. But at the same time, like you mentioned earlier, Gavin, they're good at keeping these guys healthy. And I mean, the regiments these guys are on. I mean, I saw Logan Gilbert out there every day with one of his toys, his water ball or whatever it is he's doing. And clearly there's something to that. And they have a whole plyo ball wall now. And those things are what's keeping these guys healthy, where you see other guys going down with injury. Now, of course, Matt Brash got hurt, of course, Troy Taylor went down for a little bit. They're not going to be infallible, but I think that there's a decent chance that the Mariners are probably going to need anywhere between 8 and 10 starters this year, at least to make 1 or 2 starts instead of the 7 they got lucky with last year. So Logan Evans, I think he's the guy.
Gavin and I had this conversation, especially when it comes to Luis Castillo, where we were looking at his changeup usage and how much his fastball usage has exploded since come to the Mariners, and his velo has gone down. Well, we've sort of combined that with the SIS articles that talk about how the Mariners usually top 5, top 7 in defensive positioning, and I wonder how much of the Mariners rotation's health and durability is due to them just throwing 95% instead of 110% like some of these other arms are doing. And let me just throw my fastball middle, let him put it in play because I got a great defense behind me. And I think that's partially why we've seen some of these guys' strikeouts numbers go down. With Luis Castillo particularly from Cincinnati to Seattle. But I'm not sold that the rotation durability is not repeatable. I think there's a better chance that it is just based on usage.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I hope to God that's true. I hope that is the case because, again, this is the best rotation in baseball, or one of the best, probably at least top 3. I think that with, like you were saying, the way that these guys may be throwing 95%, because we've seen Logan throw 102 before. We've seen it happen, not twice. He's got it in the tank, but normally he's sitting, 96 to 98. I think that there is something to be said there, that these guys are staying healthy because of the regiments they're on, because they're told, hey, trust your defense. And that's something the Mariners have kind of been built on, especially playing at T-Mobile Park. You have to trust your defense, because when Jerry Dipoto first came over, he said that he wanted to make this team more athletic. Now, obviously, at that time, you had Nelson Cruz. Who else was on that team? A lot of unathletic people. Robbie Cano. Now, with that being said, they added Rowdy Tellez, but he's an athlete. So
he also had Vogelback as well. So
whoa,
big votes.
Hey, we will not talk about Daniel Cornelius Vogelbach in vain. All right,
Bishop Vero High School.
When you guys were saying we're talking about the one guy that becomes an entire personality of a podcast, that was me with Vogelbach for even before the Mariner Mojo was a thing. When I used to write with Colby and Ty at Soto Mojo, Daniel Vogelbach was my guy. And I nicknamed him Cornelius because I couldn't figure out what the heck his middle name was. And then Dave Sims called him Daniel Cornelius Vogelbach on air. So yeah, it was a weird, that was a very weird day.
Is that when you knew you made it, when that came out?
That was it. that was the moment. Yeah. My 5 seconds of fame.
That's gotta be the worst offseason move, right? Dave Sims leaving.
Yeah, honestly,
right?
Yeah,
that's the biggest. That's the biggest.
Hey,
so so you kind of talk about we've kind of got this kind of question mark with kind of the pitching. What could it be? With Kirby going down, you've got an older Castillo and Brian Wu, which is kind of having that injury history. I mean, I think that's where I kind of get nervous with I get closer to your number than more with Ty saying we're be closer to 7. I'm probably saying closer to 10, just based on what's happening. Now we've, instead of having the one Wu being the one that maybe gets hurt, Castillo maybe misses one. Now you got a third guy in the mix. It's like, okay, where's this going to go? Kind of moving towards the hitters and more of a, not so much a question mark, but who do you think is the potential kind of, oh crap, call up? You know, we see some guys that played amazing. I mean, you saw Celestine. I think I'm going to say that wrong.
Celestine,
like he had a Celestine. Thank you. I mean, I was hearing stuff saying he might be the best shortstop in our organization, top to bottom. You got Montez, who I thought maybe was just going to be your future DH. But the guy hits. The guy's got he's a wizard with a bat. I mean, and so who do you have? I mean, obviously you got Cole Emerson, right? Who do you see right now? Just obviously you saw all the prospects come and go. Who would you say is maybe that, oh crap, call up that we're just not expecting?
Man, that we're not expecting, huh? I can't say Nick Dunn. I don't know. I think that we're still a little far away from Colt Emerson and Laz. Those guys I think will probably come up sometime next year, maybe towards the middle to end of next year. The one that I think is the closest to the big leagues, and it's going to be the boring answer, but it's going to be Cole Young. Like, he's the guy that is the closest to the big leagues. It has a pretty clear path should things not work out with Ryan Bliss or Dylan Moore or what have you. And because of that, and he had an okay spring. I watched him. He was facing Gerangelo Senja in a sim game the other day on the backfield, which was really cool. And he like worked a walk against him, stole second base, and like he just says he's pretty electric. And like you mentioned with Celestin being the best shortstop in the organization, I completely agree with that. We've already seen Ty Peake get moved to the outfield. We've seen Cole Young now get moved to second base. I'm relatively certain when Colt Emerson comes up, he will be a third baseman, if I had to guess. Celestin is the one guy that I think has a chance to stick at shortstop. Just based on everyone that we have in this organization. But yeah, to answer the question, again, it's boring. Cole Young, I think. The other one could be Ben Williamson. I mean, he'll be playing in AAA. I think Cole Young will probably also be playing in AAA to start the year. Obviously, we'll have to wait a couple of days to see, if any of that comes to fruition. But on the lower end of it, I would say Harry Ford. I do think they want to let him develop, and obviously he's kind of blocked with Cal and less so with Mitch Garver as the backup, but also you're paying Garver $12 million. So, although we saw them eat 15 with Mitch Haniger, so we'll see. But yeah, boring answer, but those are just the three guys that I think make sense.
And I like Cole Young. I thought Cole Young was a guy that, while Colt Emerson, I think, is great at some things, I thought Cole Young was good at everything. Mm-hmm. And to me, I'm okay with that. Like, I'd rather be a guy that's good across the board in terms of a guy that's electric in one thing and maybe, flip of a coin in the other. What about Ben Williamson playing second? We know he's done it in the minors. I think he played third, second. I think he even played a little bit of outfield, at least from what I saw splits. To me, it's like if this guy's that got that good of a bat, he's a good glove and a good arm. Polanco, maybe he's playing solid and you're struggling at second. Why don't you flip him over there and see what you have?
In that situation in particular, I think they would just move Polanco to second because his defense is bad and they put Williamson at third. But having Williamson be a second baseman is not a terrible idea. I think that it kind of limits his potential defensively. I think he is better suited for third just with his size. But honestly, if he's hitting, I don't care where they could put him at first base for all I care. You know what I mean? Defensively, he's that good. He could go play anywhere. You could probably, maybe not center. I wouldn't put him in center field, but I would put him in a corner and feel pretty okay about that. And that made me think of something as well. Is another guy that I didn't think to mention there. Defensively, though, is Brock Rodden. I don't know if he is ready. His bat's not ready. But defensively, he would be, I think he won a Gold Glove last year or the year before. In the minors. Defensively, he's as good, if not better, than pretty much everybody else on this team. And so, again, that floor of having a good defensive infielder that's not maybe not going to kill you with the bat. He might. I don't know. Again, he might be just a light hitting, like basically what Dylan Moore has been, which is fine. Maybe not to that extent, but yeah, I think that Ben Williamson at second base makes some sense if things are just really not going well there. I don't know if that would, again, if they would actually decide to do that just because of Polanco's defense, but I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I got a.
I just
no, go ahead.
You
Finish
go.
your thought. No, finish your thought because I'm changing it up.
My thing was if you're sitting there with an infield and let's say Polanco. I mean, he hit. I was real concerned when I didn't see him. Almost 2/3 of the way through the spring, he shows up because it's like, hey, you say you're healthy, prove it. And then he's hitting 330. It's like, okay, maybe what they're speaking to is legit. He hasn't been healthy in a while. So to me, if he's hitting, and we're looking at a second baseman or two second basemen that aren't hitting, this is where you talk about like maybe I'm not hiding a glove or a bat anymore. Now I'm hiding maybe a glove. And I'm going to take that, that sacrifice. That's all I got on that one.
Yeah, no, I think that you make a really good point there. Also, just something to note, I think it was Mariners Sir that posted it on Twitter, but Polanco struck out only 5 times this spring. Like, obviously he started late, but he had a 12.8% strikeout rate on the spring, which is,
let's go.
I mean, he's normally until last year, he's had a really low strikeout rate in his career, like below average. Last year it was like 29%. But so that might be a good sign just of things to come, just with Polanco, like you said. And if he doesn't kill you defensively over there at third, because that's the thing I worry about the most with him. I almost am less worried about his bat than I am about his defense, because I think that Jorge Polanco, the hitter, has a really good chance to come back. Jorge Polanco, the fielder, moving from second base, which I would say is the less intensive position, probably the least intensive position in terms of where you're going to put somebody in the infield. I worry about him over there at third base, trying to have the quick reaction time. But I mean, only time will tell. I think that what we see out of Polanco this year, he might be the X factor on this team.
37 ABs and 4 Ks.
Oh, it's
Not
only
bad.
4 Ks? Yeah.
4
Not
Ks.
bad. And just to kind of prove your point, I think Jerry DePoto views it through the same lens you do, because we've had a second base problem for how long now? So yeah, I think it's where can we stuff somebody? Oh, second base. There we go. We'll just put somebody over there. Wanted to kind of pivot to a less serious question. Obviously being down here for a month, top 2 or just like maybe your favorite places that you went to eat while you were down here. And I know there's a Mariners favorite that you might throw in there. I don't know if you will, but wanted to get your take on your favorite places while you're down here in Peoria.
Yeah, I mean, you already know I'm going to say Leo's as one of them. That is, thank you, Ryan Divish and Corey Brock, for kind of turning everybody onto that in the Mariners community. I went there a couple times. Today I went to Raisin Cane's. Love Raisin Cane's. Tomorrow I'll probably hit In-N-Out before I leave, just because it's In-N-Out, Culver's, the place we don't have up in Washington, and so I had never been. Culver's is good. I understand why people in the Midwest like
cheese curds.
Cheese curds.
So good.
Cheese
I can feel my
curds.
arteries just clogging.
Yes.
But they're delicious.
But it's so worth it.
It's so worth it.
I had a buddy that or my wife's one of my wife's best friends got married. They catered Culver's. It was like the night
That's
snack.
a good cater.
It was unreal.
Tip them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Abuelo's is a really good Mexican restaurant down here that I like to go to. My family loves going there. There's also a little Mexican joint called Carumba's, which is really good, kind of off of Bell Road. I'm trying to think where else I went. I don't know, man. I had a lot of hotel sandwiches.
Heck yeah, dude.
Because I was like, I need to save as much money as I can on this trip, especially after I got
Express.
out.
Did you
I
that?
have not gone there.
I think that was Tempe.
Tempe.
Yeah, it was. I think they had the Cam Scattaboo burrito. That was
There
a
you
big
go.
thing. It was
The novelties.
yeah.
Wanted to now put you in the right frame of mind because you're going back home. When you go to a Mariners game, what's your experience like? Is there a place that you hit before? Is there a place that you hit after? Is there a restaurant that you have to go to in downtown Seattle or Soto?
Can I be completely honest with you? No.
Always.
I honestly, when I get there, when the gates open, I go inside and I leave. Like when the game's over.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not much of a nightlife person. I should be going out and doing stuff. Maybe that's why my hair is gray, because I don't go do stuff. But yeah, I think that for the most part, I mean, Elysian down in Occidental, I do like going to Elysian once in a while. They're pretty cool. I mean, Hatback's good. It's the lame answer, but it's good. There is a new place opening that Lyle and TJ are part of, that I can't think of what it's called now.
Oh, it's the Brew Hall, right? The
is that what it is?
Yeah. Something Hall, yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's one opening, I believe, on Occidental, and I know Lyle and TJ are going to be there doing stuff a lot, so I definitely am excited to try that place out. But yeah, overall, I live like an hour south of Seattle, so generally I don't go up there too early, or like by the time the game's over, I'm like, okay, I got to go to bed because I got to work in the morning. So yeah, it's a boring life, but it is the life I live.
And you are you headed to opening day?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Joe and I'll be there.
Perfect.
Opening day. We'll be there.
I know you got
there's a chance that we're going to Hatback beforehand to meet up with a bunch of people, a lot of the content creators and stuff. I know once we get inside the stadium, we're going to meet up with, I think Connor's going to meet up with us. Lyle and TJ, we're going to meet up with all those guys. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun just seeing everybody back at the ballpark.
Yes, I'm excited for you to get back home and to kind of, get that next step going. Obviously, opening week is a whole vibe for me. Opening day should be a day off of work. We'll get there when we get there. But I do want you to raise a pint for the boys here, because I don't think Kyle, I don't believe that you guys are going to opening day. But when you get with the other creators, please keep up with you and everything. But wanted to kick it over to Ty and Kyle, kind of closing thoughts, closing questions before we kind of give Colton his time back.
Yeah, real quick, Colton. I guess just one last question before you get out of here. What's your give me two perspectives? What's your realistic outlook on the season, and what's your optimistic outlook on the season?
Damn it, Ty. I thought we'd get away without having to answer the hard stuff. Okay, realistic. I think this team's going to compete. I think this team is going to be in it with the Astros and the Rangers. I think this team will be lucky if they make the wild card with the team that is the way it is currently constructed. But that could change very quickly. If we see bounce backs from Polanco and Garver, or they make a move at the deadline, that drastically changes what I think the outcome of this team could be. But based on what we saw last year, and with that being said, with Victor and with Randy, kind of in the fold, I know that was kind of the Jerry DePoto, like, we get a full year of these guys, haha. But it's true. We get a full year of those guys now, which is cool. I think realistically, this is an 83 to 85 win team. Optimistically, I think this team can win as many as 93 games, personally. And pessimistically, I think they lose 100, but that doesn't matter. With this pitching staff, they'll never lose 100. But yeah, I think that if everything goes right, so Julio's hitting, JP bounces back, Polanco and Garver look like themselves, Victor doesn't regress, Cal continues to do what he did last year, Randy does what he did, the starting staff continues to be one of the best in baseball, you get Matt Brash back, if everything goes right, this team wins the division, 93 wins. Realistically, I think they're second in the division behind the Rangers, probably like 85-ish wins, and hopefully make wild card 3.
Yeah,
pretty fair. Yeah, it seems pretty fair to me.
And that's the way that you describe that. No wonder you've done so well on your podcast, because that's one of the harder questions, especially with the off season that we were just proposed with from the one and only Jerry DePoto. And so, no, I appreciate you giving us your take on that. And Kyle, wanted to kick it over to you for final thoughts, questions, anything from spring training that you had for Colton.
I think just looking at this, I think the first month of this season is going to be crucial in a lot of things. I think that's easy. I think that's pretty no duh. But I think it's bigger for this team. You think about the fact that Julio never gets off to a good start. He's usually now. If you look at his rookie year, I think he was getting the welcome to the MLB. The pitch that's 6 inches off the plate is a strike to you. Sorry, bud. But if our offense averages 3 runs a game, what's our win-loss after the first month?
Ooh, after the first month, I don't know how many off days they have, so let's just assume they play like 28 games. I'm not sure the amount of off days. I think if the offense scores 3 runs a game, man, how many of those are in Emerson Hancock starts? If the offense scores 3 runs a game, this team will
every 5th day. So you think
right?
He's gonna have at least 5 starts.
Shit. I think they are. What did I say? 28 games. That they will be 18-10 if they score 3 runs a game. Now, those 5 of those losses are Emerson Hancock. But yeah, I think that's the thing last year, right? It's like this team was so good on the mound. If they just had a competent offense, it didn't have to be good. It just had to be competent. This team would have made the playoffs. And unfortunately, it just wasn't that. A league average offense, and this team makes the playoffs, and who knows how far they go because of the pitching staff. But that just wasn't the case last year. You ran it back this year. The Mariners scored either the most or the second most, depending on how many runs the Kansas City Royals scored today. Runs in spring training. And they had one of the worst records. It doesn't make sense anymore. But yeah, I'll be interested to see. I think that, like you mentioned, the first month of the season, I think it is more important than it has been in years past because, like you mentioned, Julio's got to get off to a hot start. He had more at bats this spring, I think, than he's ever had before. Obviously, he missed a few games because he was sick there. But because if Polanco and Garver aren't hitting again, can we keep running them out there again at second base? What are you doing if Ryan Bliss or Dylan Moore isn't hitting? You have to have a short leash on these guys this season. Because again, if the Mariners miss the playoffs, I think everyone's out in terms of front office and whatnot. They're all out. I think maybe Dan stays because it's Dan. Edgar stays because it's Edgar. But I think Jerry and Justin are gone, which I don't necessarily agree with. I don't think that should be the case. But I think that might be the harsh reality. With that being said, it's John Stanton. He knows that these guys know how to save him money. So maybe not. But heads will need to roll this year if they miss the playoffs again with this core. And so I think that those guys getting off to a hot start is really important.
Yeah, there's give and take with the whole Jerry John situation there and everything. Colton, man, thank you so much for jumping on. Thank you for talking baseball with us, sharing your journey. For everybody out there listening, please jump over to Mariner Mojo. Check out the whole spring training journey that Colton and Joe were able to put together. Colton, the entire month or a month. It was a full month. Holy smokes.
Mm-hmm.
We are getting back to opening day. For Up West Sports, we got Ty, we got Colton, we got Kyle, and I did it right. Holy smokes. We got Gavin. That's the first time. Colton, you are good luck. You got to stay on this podcast more often. Just remember, life's too short. Gas up your boys.